Man, we had some crazy technology in Breath of the Wild, so I wouldn't be opposed to seeing something like a submarine, or instead of having Kapora, like I said, it might be, some ancient guardian tech, whatever that you're flying on in order to traverse Hyrule. So before I get into the major clue that led to this theory, I feel like I gotta walk you through exactly how I came to this point, because in this theory I'm gonna be reaching and grasping at a lot of different things that, I mean, some of y'all gonna be like, yo, you are out of your mind. I can't believe you took that and applied it to this in order to try to make it seem like that is the case. But that is what a theory is, right? So yeah, strap into your seats, because this was gonna be all over the place if you ask me. But I'm gonna bring you back to where this all started. So after Nintendo's E3 2019 Direct, and I was sitting there watching The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel trailer over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, I kept getting this sense of deja vu, and I couldn't shake it. The deja vu was all based around that hand on Ganondorf's chest, specifically the gold armor going around the hand on Ganondorf's chest. And I kept feeling like, man, I feel like I've seen this somewhere. I don't know where, but I've seen this somewhere. And for weeks and weeks, it just kept haunting me like, man, I don't know where the sense of deja vu keeps coming from with this thing, until an hour before I premiered the last video. An hour before the video went up, I said, you know what? There's an hour left. Let me play some Smash Brothers real quick to kill the time. Plus, I haven't played Smash Brothers since a little bit before E3, and I want to, get back into the swing of things, because I don't want to be super rusty when Banjo and all these characters start coming out, right? So I get back on Smash Brothers. I play a few matches with Samus, who's my main in this game. But then I say, you know what? Let me play as my main man in all the Smash Brothers game, Link. So I start playing as Link, and I'm playing, and usually I pick his green tunic. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna just play one more, and I'm gonna get off. So I just threw it on. Link, press A, jumped into the match, start playing. As you can see here, right? I win this match. The match ends. Link goes into his celebration pose, and finally, the explosion hit. I was like, there it is. That's what the armor reminds me of. That's where the deja vu is coming from. It's the champion's armor, the sleeves, the green lines within it, and then the gold armor going around, like the gold lines. It reminds me 100% of that hand in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. So I looked up everything that I could about the champion's armor, but there was not enough there for me to make a video and just be like, hey, you know what I think? I was like, that's not enough. I'm going to wait till I can hopefully get more. You know what I mean? And I just kept thinking about it, but then the video was going to premiere. So I said, you know what? Let me focus on this now, because, I'm going to interact with you guys. And the videos, so I'm watching the video, and I'm feeling like, yeah, I did a good job about, combing through the ending of Breath of the Wild to find, the most hints that I could find. But then the video ended, and I was like, how did I miss that? The biggest clue. The biggest clue being the last shot of Breath of the Wild. Bam! This right here. The Silent Princess. I said, why didn't I think to explore that? You know what I'm saying? I never once thought it. Even though, when we rewind back to the first time we saw the name of Breath of the Wild, when the first time that trailer ended, it wasn't the first trailer, but the trailer that had the name. And, that flower just came out on the name. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I feel like they did that for Iwata. That was my initial impression of it. And you heard me say that if you were subscribed back then. You remember I said that. I felt like, oh, that was something, probably for, Iwata. And then I sat there and I was like, you know what? Let me go back and watch that trailer. I watched that trailer. Didn't think nothing of it. You know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, cool. But then I said, let me watch the original trailer real quick. Just see if I see anything, specific there. Because remember, the first trailer to Breath of the Wild came out years before Breath of the Wild actually came out. And in that trailer, I was looking at the champion tunic, and I was looking at that, and I was like, yo, like, how did people actually think that this was a girl? Like, remember people were grasping that, oh man, Link looks like he has breasts. And I'm like, where? Where do you see that? But anyway, the champion tunic had the same design on the arm. It was already there from the initial reveal. Right? Which that really has nothing to do with anything, just to point out it was there. You know what I mean? And then I said, you know what? Now that I looked up the champion tunic, and then I saw the Silent Princess at the end of Breath of the Wild, it's the last shot you get after Zelda says, all that stuff about we gotta, do this, do that, and, one of the Guardians stopped working and all of that. That's the last shot of the game. And initially when I made that video, it just went over my head. But after the fact, and seeing everything that you need in order to upgrade the champion tunic, guess what you need? The Silent Princess. I said, yeah, I gotta go in on this real quick. So then I started going in on it, and I said, where do you find the Silent Princess in Breath of the Wild? And do you want to know the answers to that? Are you ready? All right, so you find the Silent Princess around fairy fountains, which we already know fairies are like the most mystical thing in the Legend of Zelda series that Link actually interacts with, that's not based on something that's a super higher power, like the three gods and things like that, which obviously you see in like dragon form in Breath of the Wild. But fairies actually have a direct impact on you. So I said you see them around all the fairy fountains, right? You see it right around the Master Sword in Korok Forest. You see it in the West Necula above Kakariko Village. You see it in Hyrule Ridge, right? Right where? Satori Mountain. Now let's break that down real quick. Satori Mountain. What is on Satori Mountain at certain times at night? The Lord of the Mountain, aka the reincarnated spirit of one of the sages or something like that. That's supposedly what legend says it is up there. That horse that you can get on and ride on, which you should be seeing right now, right? So I'm like, that's a sage right there. So then that took me into sages. And I started running because I was already thinking about sages for my next video. And I said, I could throw this all together now because it's all coming together, right? So I started looking at all the sages throughout all the Zelda games, right? And it was just so much. And I don't even know how I'm going to go about actually explaining this, but I'm going to break it down like this. First off, oh yeah, and I didn't tell y'all one place where the Silent Princess is also found. But before I do, let me just break something down real quick. Everywhere that this flower is found, I feel, has to do with a sage. Now, how many sages are there? 6, right, in Ocarina of Time, around Link, right? You had the old man who, I guess, I always thought he was, like the owl, Kapora Gilbora was like based off that guy from Ocarina of Time. He was just in there the whole time, I guess, in that realm, in that, silent sage realm, whatever you want to call it. But you had 6, and you saw those characters, fall, die, whatever you want to say, in Ocarina of Time. They surrounded it. Now, you know who's the leader of the 6, right? It's Zelda. So that makes it 7. And I said to myself, all right, so that's 7. And in Ocarina of Time, Impa is a sage. So then I said, hold on. So in West Necula, above Kakariko Village, it's literally looking down on Impa. Yes, the Silent Princes are looking down on Impa. Now, I believe that there aren't 7 sages. There are 8. There are 8, and they've always been 8. And when they didn't show 8, it didn't go good. Remember Twilight Princess? When the 6 sages were all tough and were like, yeah, Ganondorf, we're going to seal you. Here's this badass white sword. Wham! Right through his chest. And Ganondorf was like, ha, 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 pulled that out. And then ran in straight, bodied one of them like with a clothesline. I said that didn't work because there weren't 8. There wasn't 7. Zelda wasn't even in. You know what I'm saying? There was 6. And 6 is not the number. I believe there's 8, just like 8 heroines. Now you might be wondering, how are there 8? Well, we already got our champions established in Breath of the Wild. We got our 4 champions, our new ones, not the ones that died from 100 years ago, the ones that helped you in the ending. No, not those. The ones that we actually put in position of power. Those are 4 of the sages. Zelda being 5, Impa being 6, Fi being 7, and 8, the hand. And that's why the champion tunic represents that. Link's specifically represents that sage, I feel. That's what I think. I think that's the Silent Princess, to just break it down. That's 100% what I feel. And to make this theory even more perfect, I didn't tell you one of the places where Silent Princess is, where supposedly it can't grow. Because Zelda was trying throughout the whole game to grow it, and she says she can never get it to grow. In her study, you find a Silent Princess. Supposedly it couldn't grow there, but it was there. And where's Zelda at during Breath of the Wild? In the castle. So it grew literally right near her in her study. The thing grows next to the Satori Mountain again with the Lord of the Mountain. It grows right around Fi. Everywhere I said you find this thing, it's literally linked to exactly what I'm saying, to the sages. So I was like, that's what I think it is. I think the Silent Princess grows around its other partners. You know what I mean? And I was just looking at this like, I really think that this is it. I really legitimately do. I think Fi, we already know Fi is dead, pretty much, or down or in out for the count for the moment being, for the time being, right? Because Zelda said to him, oh, I can't hear the sword. And you know Fi helped Zelda throughout the whole thing, like sages always do. They're always part of that, group that team. And you know, Impa was a part of it. You know what I'm saying? This is all set. Hell, behind Impa, she has the entire artwork of, oh yeah, this is what happened 10,000 years ago, which that I got a whole theory about that. But I started looking at that behind Impa, right? And I was looking at the bottom. Well, I was looking at the top, right? Because it tells like the whole story. Like you see like the Hylians come, and then you see like the Sheikah with the technology at the top. And then when you get to the bottom, I guess you see like all you know, the Sheikah and all that, or whatever races of Hyrule. And then at the end of that line, the last one is like bowing down, and then it splits into two. Now you know the split. There's four at the bottom, and at the top, there's eight. There's eight bodies. And at the end of that, it's the Hylia statue. And that's what made me think like that's the eight sages. Now I'm not sure what the four is, but I'll tell you one thing. There were four divine beasts. And all four of them got corrupted by four different characters. You know what I'm saying? That Ganon put there, that he, you know, created with his malice. So I said, yo, to me, this all perfectly adds up. And now a lot of people have this theory like, oh yeah, Ganondorf is the one there because of the green and the red hair. Well, here's my theory. My theory is that what happened 10,000 years ago didn't actually happen 10,000 years ago in some normal way where it was like, oh yeah, 10,000 years ago this happened. Then years later, you know, Calamity came back, and then obviously Link lost 100 years, froze, came back, destroyed Calamity. And that, look, let me break it down. We had four sages all shoot beams at Ganon, right? Calamity Ganon. And how much power did that take out? Half. Why? Because it was four. Half of the amount of sages. You need eight. You see what I'm saying? When there wasn't eight in Twilight Princess, Ganon, again, clothesline that sage. And was like, yeah, get out of here with that. You always need eight, I feel, to win. So here's what I think. I think we are going to play with time in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Where we're going to go, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I think what happened 10,000 years ago still hasn't happened. And I think that character that you saw, that, oh, it's red hair and he's all green. But if you look closely, yeah, it's green and it has a little bit of gold in it. Just like, again, what I'm calling this character now, the Silent Princess, hand on Ganondorf. I'm like, it's that same thing. So we see Link get corrupted, but we don't see how far. We all assume, oh, it's just going to be his arm. What if it's not? What if his whole body and he's glowing that green, that ability? Guess who he would look like? The character right there standing across from Zelda, you know, on the other side of Calamity Ganon. And I feel like that's it right there. You got the eight sages at the bottom and everything. I feel like that's telling the story of something that did happen, but it's yet to happen because we haven't done the whole time jumping and everything in order to cause that to happen. I think we are going to do that. And this time the timeline is going to be fixed so that the events of Breath of the Wild don't happen again. And in Breath of the Wild, there's a part where Zelda basically is telling Link about, I think it's actually in, she's not telling Link, I'm lying. I think it's in her study, in her diary, where she says like she's tried to, you know, go under Hyrule Castle and find exactly where these giant, you know, Sheikah pillars, where they, you know, where they begin, and they never could find it. And I said that was probably something that she wanted to continue doing. And that's why in the sequel to Breath of the Wild, she finally finds it. You know what I mean? She finally finds it, and Ganondorf is there. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Zelda knew about everything that happened, it just wasn't all told within the story of Breath of the Wild. It's just too much that I feel like, it's just too much where 8 is too, it's just too consistent. There's one area where I was actually at the 8th heroine, right? And I was like, I want to see exactly where the 8th heroine is aiming at. So I'm going to go in a straight line from her hands. And I did that. So this area, I don't remember the name of it, but I'm going to put it there, right? I forget the name of it, but in this area, the ground you could barely see. But when you actually do find an area where you can see the ground, the tiles on the ground, 4 squares, 4 circles, 8, making up the texture on the ground. It's too much. You know what I'm saying? Where it's 8 all the time, and I just kept feeling like, yeah, yo, I think it all adds up. And then I went to the Temple of Time again. I said, you know what? Let me go to the Temple of Time, see if I see something. Right? Hylia statue is in there, glowing. Obviously, we all know that because you can go and pray to it. Around Hylia, there are 6 statues, and I was like, oh look, 6. And I was like, oh yeah, Hylia 7. And I was like, no, but Hylia doesn't count as one of the sages, right? Because I said that I would just throw off my whole theory. So then I went to the left and went to the right. And what do I find? 2 tombs. 2 graves. So there's 6 bodies standing around Hylia, and 7 and 8 are dead. The Hand, Silent Princess, Fee. Fee is, out for the count right now. So I feel like we're gonna get the Mad Sword all the way up to its, full ability in the sequel, and that's gonna be the weapon that doesn't break at all. And in no time or nothing, it's just never gonna break. It's never gonna get weak, powered, none of that. It's gonna be fully powered. And yeah, I think the eighth is again that Hand, Silent Princess. And there was something else also that I wanted to bring up too that added to. Oh yeah, that's right. When you do the trial of the sword and you finally finish it and you get your sword powered up, you know how many dead Sheik are there? 7. 7 in order to power up the eighth. Fee. You see what I'm saying? Like everything I just kept digging and digging, and that's why it took me some time to get to this video, right? I just kept digging. I was like, yo, this is just too crazy. Like Silent Princess, come on. It updates the Sheikah body armor, it updates the chest guard, funny enough. That hand is actually on the chest, but I think that's reaching. That hand is actually reaching. You know what I mean, though. Nah, but it updates the stealth mask, chest guard, and tights. Sheikah armor. It updates the champion tunic. And come on, like it's in the logo of Breath of the Wild. It's in the ending of Breath of the Wild. And it also creates Sneaky Elixir, which I said I can tie it into that because I feel like that was a ploy. That was a trick to sneak up on Ganondorf and trap his ass. You know what I'm saying? And it creates Sneaky Elixir. It's just too much to me. It's just too much. To me, it all adds up to that being exactly that, the Silent Princess. Even like when I when I think about like, yeah, the 4, like they tried to destroy Ganondorf, like help you out, and they only could get half, his energy. I'm like, after all that work, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like, yeah, it's because they were missing the 8. Now maybe if Teba, which is a new one, it's Teba, Yunobo, which is the Goron, Riju, which is the pretty ass, Gerudo girl, and of course, Sidon, who makes all the ladies' hearts melt. Him. Them 4, obviously they're gonna be blessed with the 4 who died before them. 8. You see what I'm saying? I bet you if they blast his ass now, well, I guess they have to fix the Divine Beast or whatever the case may be. I bet you it would take out Ganon's whole power. I bet you it would be something where like Link fights instead first, and then they blast him, and then he dies. And I'll be like, yeah, it all adds up. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, to me, I just can't help but think that there's always been 8 sages, and it's always been Fee, and we know that it is the case because Skyward Sword is before every Zelda game. So yeah, that's my theory, and I want you guys to tell me what you think. Do you think I'm on something? Do you think I'm absolutely crazy, or yeah? I personally feel like that's what it's gonna be. That's gonna be the Silent Princess, and that's why the Silent Princess is there, watching over Impa, watching over Zelda in her study, around Fee, right around the Master Sword. You know what I'm saying? It's just come on around the reincarnated Lord of the Mountain. It's just too coincidental. Oh yeah, and also the area where I said the 8th heroine is aiming at that area. If you go literally past it and continue where she's aiming at, it's actually towards Hylia. Yes, on Skyloft. You know the area Skyloft you usually can find. They perfectly line up. It's to me, it's just like too coincidental, and plus that was something big that they didn't even touch on the 8 heroine. It's just, and listen, Zelda always played with time. Hell, this game played with time. You know what I'm saying? Like they literally froze Link for 100 years. Zelda was stuck with Ganondorf in there, Calamity Ganon for 100 years and didn't age a day. So I was just like, yeah, I think this all adds up. And then of course, the green, it matches, every single one of Link's abilities, which comes from the previous champions who fell. To me, man, it just adds up too much, man. It adds up too much. Maybe I'm going crazy. Too much Breath of the Wild. You know what I'm saying? Thinking about this way too hard. But if it turns out to be the case, that's going to be awesome. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, now let me know what you think because I don't know. And if you want to, go in and start like, doing your own research and stuff like that, please do. Because like I said, I want to know, what the best Legend of Zelda scholars out there think. Like, am I onto something? Or am I completely, off base? Is there something wrong to my theory of 8 sages and stuff like that? I need to know, because really, there's only so much I could do, with like looking at specific stuff and trying to figure out like, oh, maybe this hints at that and that hints at this. But yeah, man. So before I start tackling the whole idea of there being more than 8 sages, I gotta tackle one of the most common criticisms that was also found in the previous video comment section. And that was that Fee can't be a sage. No way Fee is a sage. It doesn't make sense for Fee to be a sage. You're such an idiot. Why would you make Fee a sage? That's such a stupid thing to do. And I'm just sitting there like, Jesus Christ, these people are so adamant about the idea that Fee isn't a sage. So fine, I am going to entertain that. And I am going to entertain them by tackling their own clearly believed to be factual idea that Fee cannot be a sage. So I went over to Zelda Wiki and I pulled some choice quotes, right, on the purpose of sages. And I quote, serving as a bridge between the sacred realm and Hyrule, guarding the Master Sword's power and executing those who pose a high threat to Hyrule are included with their duties, leaving their purpose best to be described as protectors of the kingdom. Revealed by Rauru, the original sages were the ones who built the Temple of Time to protect the Triforce against those who would use it for evil. The Triforce was hidden in the Temple of Light, the only sage temple to be built in the sacred realm. While each of the sage temples seems to grant access to it, only the Temple of Time is meant to do so for non-sages. Therefore, it was protected with a seal controlled by the Master Sword. And end quote. Now, I don't know about you guys, but guarding the Master Sword's power and executing those who pose a high threat to Hyrule sounds exactly like what Fee does, you know, being the whole Blade of Evil's Bane and all of that good stuff. I mean, I personally feel like the opening line of the quote that I took basically tells you everything you need to know. Serving as the bridge between the Sacred Realm and Hyrule. That right there should tell you everything you need to know. The sages basically created their own personal bridges to the Sacred Realm so that they can jump back and forth between realms, those being sacred temples. They created two different ones from their specific ones. One is exclusively in the Sacred Realm. It's a Temple of Light, which houses and protects the most important thing in the Zelda series, the Triforce of power, wisdom, courage, all of that good stuff. Then you have the other one, which is the Temple of Time. And that one is made specifically so that non-sages can get into the sacred realm if for any reason they need that to be a thing. They created one. And the only way to get through is with the help of, in my opinion, a sage. Fee, the Master Sword. Jam it into the Temple of Time and you will get transported. Hopefully it won't be for 7 years and not a trick like what Ganon did to Link in Ocarina of Time. But you get what I'm saying. It's all right there. Right in your face. And if that's not enough for you, I will gladly sit here and discuss Fee's origin with you. Where did Fee come from? Literally given birth to by the great statue of Hylia on Skyloft. Yes, you have to go under Hylia's dress and pull Fee out, and Fee acted like the first ever sage. She was your guide and helped you power up the Master Sword. So yes, by all intensive purposes, in my opinion, Fee is a sage. I 100% believe that. Yes, beyond theorizing and all of that, I believe that Fee is a sage. So now that that's out the way and I've established Fee as a sage, we can get back to our regularly scheduled program. So in the previous video, I had this whole idea that there were 8 sages. And I gave you multiple reasons and cool ideas and even had this awesome moment in the Temple of Time where I justified the 8. And now it's like if it's all out the window because someone went ahead and brought up the fact that Wind Waker added 2 extra sages to the lineup. So if we're going by my theory, there should be 10. And not 9, because when Wind Waker added 2, it went from 7 to 9. So, if in my theory Fee is a sage, who are the other 9 to make up the 10? In order to justify my previous theory and all of that. Well, before we get to that, we gotta go back to Zelda Wiki to get another quote. And I quote, the Wind Waker brought 2 more sages to the roster, seemingly functioning independently from the 7 sages. This group's total number is not specified, and due to their current one-time appearance, it is also unclear if their responsibilities outrange solely taking care of the Master Sword's power to repel evil. But just as with the 7 sages, the absence of only one is enough to break their power. End quote. Alright, so 2 things we can take away from that quote. 1. Damn, I was right in my previous video with the whole 6 sages trying to seal Ganondorf and Twilight Princess and him being like, nah, clotheslining one of them. Correct, see? Because if only even one is missing, you know, it's going to break their power. And the other part I want to take from this is this group's total number is not specified, which justifies 100% where we going with the whole idea of there being 10. not 9 sages, and not 8 like I proposed in the previous video. So, who are these new sages? Well, obviously you already know some of them because I talked about them in the previous video. But let me break it down who I believe all these sages to be. So, first things first, Medley and Makar are the 2 sages that went ahead and grew the number of confirmed sages from 7 to 9. Medley and Makar, if you remember, Medley is a Rito who gets her sage juju from Zora, and Makar is Korok who gets his sage juju from a little boy. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because I believe sages do need to get their essence from someone or something that died previously. Like, I believe that the 7 wise men led to obviously the 7 maidens in the next, reincarnation of the sages. And let me tell you, I never liked that whole 7 wise men thing because it never made sense to me that all the sages would be men. So yeah, it makes perfect sense that if we're gonna take those 7 sages and we're gonna go by my rules real quick, I gotta go back and and start, jumping the shark. The one kneeling down is talking to Fee. That's 8, and the other 2 are Impa and Zelda, and they're nowhere to be found because Zelda's smart enough to know that, listen, the evil is always going to want to try to take out the sages because it knows that, we need these sages. So Zelda was like, you know what, we're going to make all the known sages dudes. We don't got to worry about Fee. She's hidden because she's in the sword. And us 2, we out of here. That's what I like to believe. Now, I really just don't like the idea of it was like, oh yeah, the first sages were all men because, just men. Come on, man. We all know women are better than men in all facets of life. It just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, back on point. The reason why I bring up Medley and Makar's ancestors is for the simple fact that I'm going to talk about ancestors soon enough. And I don't want anybody being like, oh yeah, but look at that. You're wrong because, a sage doesn't have to be the exact same race of the thing that came before. You know what I'm saying? Look at Wind Waker. Well, I'm going to justify that real quick. And it's not even justifying. It's just the truth. Makar is a Korok. He gets his sage juju from a Kokiri. Kokiris are known to have evolved into Koroks after the Great Flood. That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? So yes, the same race passed on its sage juju to its exact race. Now you're gonna be like, but the Zoras and the Ritos. Well, all you Zelda aficionados out there, you already know. Great Flood, again, a bunch of the Zoras evolved into the Ritos. Yes, Rito are evolved forms of Zora. So again, juju passed down to the exact same thing, basically, just to keep it straight. So now let's get to who these sages actually are. So, Yonobu, he's 1. Riju, 2. Teba, 3. Sidon, 4. Impa, 5. Fee, 6. 7. The Silent Princess, which, as you know, if you watch the previous video, that is the hand that we see in the Breath of the Wild sequel trailer. 8 being Zelda. 9 is literally told to us in Breath of the Wild, and that's the Lord of the Mountain, described in Breath of the Wild as being a reincarnated sage. Now, before anyone goes ahead and starts saying, oh yeah, but how does that sage even help Link in Breath of the Wild? Well, before the Champions Ballad came out, that sage was the fastest way to get around Hyrule. Just unlimited stamina, running at ridiculously super fast speeds. So yeah, I would say that was helpful. I know I used it multiple times to get around Hyrule in my first playthrough. So yeah, that's 9. Now, who is the 10th? I was going to give this honor actually to the King of Hyrule because of the opening of the game, but then I was like, nah, and if anything, to me, I feel like that was one of Zelda's abilities, to have the King of Hyrule remain there until the champion will return so that he can train the champion before letting him off of the Great Plateau. No different from Zelda throwing her voice to say, Link, wake up, and all of that good stuff. I think that's what it was, because once he disappeared, he was gone forever, never to be seen again. So, again, who is the 10th stage? I give that honor to none other than the Great Deku Tree. Yes, the Great Deku Tree is my 10. So now to break it down with races and everything. Yonobu, Goron, Riju, Gerudo, Teba, Rito, Sidon, Zora, Impa, Sheikah, Fee. I will put that in the AI technology category. Silent Princess, I feel that the Silent Princess is going to be a Zonai. Zelda is a Hylian. The Great Deku Tree is a Korok, and the Lord of the Mountain I would put under the realm of the spirits. Why? Well, for one, it looks like a spirit, and two, it fits right in with the spirit realm that we saw in Skyward Sword, which, you know, Fee basically gained us access to, just like the sages love to do. And we know that the spirit realm is in between Hyrule and the Sacred Realm. And I don't know about you, that Lord of the Mountain looks like it's in between both realms. So yeah, I think Spirit makes perfect sense. So now that I've justified each and every one of my sages, it's only right that I get into talking about my theory of 10,000 years prior to the events of Breath of the Wild and what happened in that tapestry. I want to break that down real quick, but before I get to that, I got to talk about my whole Temple of Time theory, which I pretty much described as the events of 10,000 years ago were basically being remembered in the Temple of Time. You had the six sages around Hylia and the Silent Princess who fell, and Fee who also fell, being represented in each of the tombs. Well, scratch that completely, seeing as now there's 10 sages that we got to deal with. Here's how I'm going to justify the same idea still. So, the events that happened 10,000 years ago were the events that sealed Ganondorf the way we see him in the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In that trailer, we see him already sealed. That had to happen in the, battle of 10,000 years ago to lead Zelda to believe that, oh yeah, the Calamity's going to come back. We got to collect all the champions and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? So, if that is the case, right, then the six characters around the Hylia statue are as follows. 4 champions, Impa being 5, and Zelda being 6. Those are the 6 statues. Now, in each tomb, I would say one is the Lord of the Mountain, which we know fell and it's now reincarnated in this current time period. And I would say it was there helping Link in the battle and all of that good stuff. And then finally would be the Silent Princess in the other one because of the ultimate sacrifice, trapping Ganondorf under there so that he could never rise again, even though I guess some of his calamity started oozing out of him. And then that's what caused the events to happen 100 years prior to the events of Breath of the Wild that we play. Now I know, that's only 8. What's up with the other 2? Well, the other 2 are the Great Deku Tree, which if a tree can survive in the real world for 5,000 years, there's no reason why it couldn't survive in the mystical world of Hyrule for over 10,000 years. And the other is Fee, who's been around since before Hylia even sent the Hylians up into the sky. Now, this is all assuming that these events happen in order, and I've already established the idea that I don't think they did. Or maybe they did, and we're going to reverse the events of the way they happened. I'm not really sure. Time travel, man. It's weird. But here's what I do know. When you're looking at this beautiful tapestry here, you gotta take into consideration the fact that Link looks the way he looks, which I basically said that's because he's covered in all of the Silent Princess's awesome power. I would say the sword looks the way it looks is because the sword is covered in the power of the spirit animal, which is the Lord of the Mountain, which we know the Silent Realm ties into the Master Sword, so that can easily be the case. And then you got to look at each and every single one of these champions. They look nothing like the champions looked when they attacked the Calamity in Breath of the Wild's ending. They look nothing like it. Instead, it looks like my idea of the tech labs in Hyrule, the 2 that exist, may be expanded to each and every other region. And that's why each champion here looks like they're covered in the type of gear that Link gets in Breath of the Wild, representing each of their specific divine beast. And I like that idea that they're in tune so much with their divine beast, really unlocking all of its power. I can see that being actually the case. Maybe they even needed that armor in order to jump through time. Maybe Link didn't need it because Link is walking around with the power that is attached to the Silent Realm and the power of the Zonai, which I would like to believe has to do with time and everything, because the Zonai's whole thing is they've been around for a very, very long time, then they disappeared. Well, they were around a very long time ago, then they disappeared. So if they're still around, and just hiding, that can be a whole different dynamic. But I would like to think that the Zonai would involve time. The Zonai are weird, because I even look at Teba and I'm like, why is he wearing Zonai like armor? It looks like it because he has the Zonai symbols, which you see on all of the different mazes that you can find around Hyrule, which is basically created by the Zonai. And I like to think of the loot that's coming out of Ganondorf, you know what I'm saying, circling out of him, the Gerudo text and all that, could easily be representing of that loop also. But then I think about the fact that the Zonai did worship the great owls, and then I think about the Rito, and I think about this giant fat bird. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, maybe it's all linked. Maybe the Zonai are tied to every single race of Hyrule. You know what I'm saying? And that's something super interesting. It's all crazy interesting and, you know, theories that are just supposed to be in good fun. But that's where I'm at right now. I think we're going to jump back in time and we're going to destroy the Calamity and Ganondorf, not make the whole sacrifice happen with the Silent Princess and the hand and trapping Ganondorf, sealing him there forever, because all that did was create like this event where, let's just say Zelda had a hand in that, right? A hand in that, you hear me? But yeah, the hand trapped Ganondorf. And then what happened to Zelda? The Calamity came back 10,000 years later, trapped Zelda, right? And then Zelda basically had to, in a sense, trap Link for 100 years for him to survive, because she couldn't let Link be reincarnated young, because the Calamity will probably just immediately destroy him. You know what I'm saying? So instead, she sealed him away so that he can come back fully trained, fully powered Beast Mode Link, which that's what Link was at the end of the day. Because remember, Link, yeah, he fell, but he was getting busy in the events, you know, 100 years prior to Breath of the Wild. Look, there's so many things that they can do. Breath of the Wild story, you know, gets a lot of criticism for not being all in your face, but it's so deep, there's so much lore that you can pull from. And then when you start theorizing and things like that, you can just start running wild with it. And that's the best thing about Zelda. Zelda games stay doing that, and that's what I love about Zelda games. But now that I've gotten all of that out the way, I'm going to end this video by leaving you with a final justification for the idea of 10 sages. Because I know some of you are going to be real fun in the comments. So this is specifically for you. For those who are going to argue the idea of there being 10. So I take you one final time to Zelda Wiki, and I quote, "On the island of the dead in Phantom Hourglass, a graveyard can be found that includes graves for 6 sages and 3 other people. The graves of the 6 sages tell the directions that must be traveled in the corridor, while the inscriptions on the other 3 graves cannot be deciphered." So, if there's 6 graves, 3 uncrypted, that makes 9. So who would be the final one? Which sage hasn't been buried in the era of Phantom Hourglass? Tetra, our Princess Zelda. And when she dies, she'll be laid to rest right next to those other ones. You might be wondering now about Fi, but you know what Fi did. The ultimate sacrifice. You know. Man, that game's supposed to be kiddie. At least that's what they say. Wind Waker's so good. So damn good. But yeah, man, there you have it. 10. 10. 10. Will it be 10 in Breath of the Wild 2? Who knows? But this was all fun and games. And that is it for my ultimate theory of all theories. Just kidding. I just wanted to see how many of you would have gotten to that point right there and been like, man, he really justified everything. But wait, I missed something in the tapestry. I don't know how you say it, man. I think I've said it multiple ways already in this video. It doesn't really matter. Check this out. I gave this awesome point. Like I said, if a theory is going to work, it has to work no matter what, right? And everything that you said previously needs to still work with the new things that were thrown at you by the people who were trying to break and tear your theory down. So, here's what I got for that. In my previous video, you might remember an awesome moment when we went to the bottom of that awesome artwork, and then I counted out the 8 that were there, leading to the great statue of Hylia. Well, now you might be wondering, well, look, you ruined it. You ruined it again. You ruined it. Well, I justified the simpler time, and I'm here to justify this. It's simple. They failed 10,000 years ago. They failed completely. Why? Because there were 8 and not 10. And in Breath of the Wild 2, there will be 10. So Ganondorf, both are about to get their asses whipped. Officially, properly, done right. And it's going to be beautiful. I cannot wait. But here we are, finally at the end of the theory of all theories, and the final thing that I need to nip in the bud so that there's no holes in my theories, and that, my friends, are the 8 heroines. Because I can hear it already, but there's only 8 heroines, there's only 8 heroines. Are there though? Are there really only 8? Let's do the math real quick. We know there's 7 in this area right here. We know of the eighth heroine. We know of Fee. Yes, the sword. We always supplied it to the eighth heroine. How did it get there? Maybe that's Fee. And then when you go to the actual town of Gerudo, well, look what we have here. Another statue. That's 10. Oh, yeah, and funny enough, I gotta mention this. I shouldn't, but I am because I feel like I gotta end this one on the reach. Since people couldn't take the reach for what they were, it was just in good fun, man. The floor tiles was just for fun. But in this area right here, the most Gerudos I've ever seen in this actual room with this statue are 9 women. Statue being the 10th. I'm just saying.